already so prevalent in today's society, may be thwarted. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, to present to you today the founder of the League, Miss Sylvia Skankhurst, singing for us a song which offers sage advice to the worried citizen. Sylvia's mother, the celebrated Emmeline Skankhurst, will accompany on the pianoforte.
Folks, it's time for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mecky. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're all ready. Take it away, guys.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave
and Mecky, live from the Sydney studios in Australia. If you didn't know, Revolution Radio has a chat room and we're in there right now, and so can you be. Go to freedomslips.com and you can chat and listen from there. Check out our website, shinysideout.net, for more info, and also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Yes, we are still on YouTube. There are heaps of ways to listen to the station. If you live in Kentucky, tune into WZZR 101.3 FM. If you're anywhere else in the entire world, via one of these apps. So you got Revolution Radio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio Tuner, Speaker.com, iHeart, Live 365, and our very own Shiny Side Out app. At home, if you are there, on a Grace Tabletop digital radio, or driving around in a GM motor vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio. All are revolutions in radio. If you want a CD of our last year's shows, check the station's website for details. And the number to call in if you are in the United States of America is 347-688-2902, or in fact via Skype, which is probably easier, and you simply add Freedom Screen. One word. Solaris once again had an awesome show. What a shock. And how are you, Dave?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I just want to tell you, you were just mentioning all the different ways you can listen, and what was really cool was I ran into some friends of mine from America when I was there doing school, and they said that they listened to the show. How cool is that? Mecky. Earth to Mecky? Anyway, they said just how cool it was that they were listening to the show, and they wanted to know more about it and how he did it and where is it and where can you get, where can you listen to it, blah, blah, blah. And I gave them our little intro spiel. It was pretty cool. It really was. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with where the show's going. And I still can't believe it. This is show 132. And it's incredible. I kept thinking to myself, when I was listening to This Blue Monkeys show, that's one of the other hosts on the station, and I was listening to her show, and I rang in, and Hawk asked if I wanted a show of my own. Things happen. Things can happen, and don't dismiss a good opportunity when you see one. Thank you so much, Nighthawk, once again for allowing us to do what we do on air. It really does. It fills me with joy. Today is Father's Day in Australia. I know there's a couple of days that differ, and one of those certainly is Father's Day. And with the US, that is, and maybe the rest of the world. But I have to say, do you know what? It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Thanks to Loris, by the way. That was great. Yeah, you know, I had a sleep in today. Enjoyed the sleep in. I was given a painted rock with on it. It said "My Dad Rocks," and that was very special. So I've received a lot of chocolate and lots of sleep in, and I got to eat the biggest bacon and fried eggs that I've ever eaten, and I'm still full from it for breakfast. So thank you, everyone, and anyone who has children. Good for you. You know how I feel about it. So I wanted to say, look, Meckie's dropped off air, and I don't know what's going on. So Meckie says hello again, so I'll see if I can pull him back in. Never mind. But in the meantime, I'll just run through some news until he comes back online. There was two F-15s. Now, everyone would know this one if you're up on the news like we are. Two F-15s scrambled to track unresponsive aircraft off the Florida coast. And what had happened was a turboprop aircraft was unresponsive, didn't respond to radio calls, and according to the way it should go, not like 9/11, but if a plane doesn't respond to the radio call, it's supposed to the military is supposed to scramble and get up there nice and quick. And of course that's what happened. They found the poor pilot slumped over the yoke. It's not a steering wheel, if you don't know, it's called a yoke. And they followed him as far as they could until even, it went into the Cuban airspace, so they had to pull off their pursuit. And, I can't imagine what the pursuit would be like. If you're in a twin-engine turboprop plane, you're flying like this speed, and the jet fighters go straight past you. I don't think they can handle a very slow stall. They've got a very, very high rate of stall at a low speed. So it would have been extraordinary for them to keep up with this and not overfly him every second, have to turn around, do like a 20-kilometre arc, and then come back and have a look through the window for half a second and off to the horizon again with those jet fighters. But unfortunately, from what we understand, the plane has crashed indeed, but it wasn't a jet aircraft, it was a turboprop aircraft. And we have Maggie back on the line. Welcome
on
back,
the
Maggie.
line. I'm on the line. No, it's called online. No, I'm on the line. Yes, thank you. For some reason, my Skype decided to go offline, which is normal, right?
Yeah.
That happens.
Hey, Maggie, guess what I did on that track? Guess what I did? I looked through my router's logs.
Yep.
And I found a number of IP addresses which were consistent, but only through that period of time, which we're delivering ACK scans and DOS attacks. Yes. So last week appears to be entirely intentional. So if you want to know why we had so much trouble last week, I've got the thing. And what I've done, Meckie, I've issued those IP addresses to the station, so that they can check their logs and cross-reference and see if it was a combined attack or it wasn't just individual or to us.
Actually,
they all originated from the US.
Okay, they're probably military or government IP addresses, so maybe they've employed some hackers. But I'm running an IP scanning software as well, so if you can send me those IPs,
yep.
I'll keep a look out of them. And anyone out there, PeerBlock is really good for IP scanning.
Awesome.
Just to let you know.
Awesome. Well done. And if anyone from PeerBlock is listening, I mentioned it too. All right.
That's right. It's a free software. Sorry, Dave. It's not.
Oh.
Yeah, hot dog, right?
Yeah, hot dog.
Sorry, I do apologize though for being off the air there for a second. I've taken the video off just in case, so you can't see my beautiful face.
Yes.
Yeah, right. But look, I don't know if you got into it quite
I
quite
talked
yet.
about the F-15 scramble.
Okay, great. Because Dave has put together a whole bunch of really important current affairs stuff, which we're going to do first.
Just nice
and then we're going to, then we're going to finish with October 13th.
Mm-hmm.
That date, that very
the date we were talking about last week.
Totally, yeah. There must be voice recognition software online, and it's not really that far fetched to think about it. You know, if the typed word, I mean, at the end of it, it's all just bits and bytes, right? The zeros and ones, guys, and anything can raise a flag. So
just to let you know, I'm just going to put the image up there for a second for those who are watching on the live stream on YouTube. There's an image there of one of the topics that we'll be talking about a bit later on when we come back to it. So there we go.
Good man.
Meki, I was going to say there was breaking news, and it's not breaking now, it was a day old, but that the Russian strategic nuclear forces are to hold a major exercise.
Yep.
Now, okay, so Putin, I'm just a big fan of the newstainment out there at the moment, because that's all it is, right? It's not news, it's not entertainment. That's what I think it is. It's like infomercials.
That's exactly.
That's it.
It's just filler while you watch commercials. Every news item is just a filler.
Between the commercials.
That's right.
Did you know, Meki? I heard this. As a segue to this. I heard this this week, and it was that the news on TV was originally there, placed and cross-subsidized by all the other shows. So, say when the Lucy show was on.
Yep.
Yeah, in black and white. The news came on, and they made no money. There was no profit in running news.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cross-subsidized by every other show that was on, but they made enough money not to worry about it. It was fine.
Yep.
Until they started running, commercials during the news, and then there couldn't be a news story that was negative towards those people that were advertising during your show. Yeah.
Yes.
And is that YouTube and the archives are filled with people who made those mistakes.
So
they cut to the commercial after doing a story about them having to pull stuff off the shelves because it was poisoning, right. And then they ran the ad. So, oh no.
So what you're saying though is that essentially the news used to be a public service. That's a shocker.
Absolutely. Remember those days, Meki? Those long gone. So as now it's basically just, it's not, I'm not going to even say government controlled, but the government certainly have a hand in what they want you to know. So in Australia, it's all leaks. It's a leak. The government actually pre-leaks themselves information to the media so they can get public opinion, so that they can put together a package on it. I mean, that's what they're not confident enough anymore to do anything of their own bat. So they just go, I don't think it's going to go well, so we'll put the news out. Oh, look, it worked. Cool. Now we can go ahead with that, whatever it was. So, so what I'm pointing at with this one is that Russia's been in the bad books for a while internationally with the Ukraine thing, but still he says nothing happened. And when you watch the news with him in it in Russian and translate it, it's actually pretty convincing. He says, actually, I wasn't doing anything of the kind. In fact, he says that the Ukraine had an election to say would they like to join, and it was yes. So go and put that in your pipe and smoke it, right? It was basically
you smoke that.
Yeah, you do that. So now the Russian nuclear forces are having a major exercise, not seen since the Cold War. So that's something to watch. I'll post just for everyone, just so you can see it. I've been watching a lot of Russian-only news stories, in Russian only. Now, I don't speak Russian, but there's a guy at work that tells me all about it. And and I trust him. So, he tells me, and it's sometimes it's a bit distressing to get the real story when it's such a contrast to what we're being fed. So, Meki, one of the other things, what was the next one?
So we're also talking about here an interesting development for Australia, at least. For the longest time, we've held off selling uranium, yellow cake, to India for the simple reason that India is not a signatory of the International Nuclear Arms Proliferation Treaty. Non-proliferation. Right, there you go. No, that's right. So essentially, we've now done away with that. and they have given us their promise. Cross my heart, hope to die, not to use it as a weapon, or not to weaponize the uranium. Yeah, sure. Okay, then if you say so, it must be true, because you said you wouldn't. Now that's a departure. That's a big departure for Australia, which is also interesting. We're one of the biggest producers of uranium globally, and it's always been a bit iffy. We've always been a bit backwards in coming forward, even when selling it to the States or whoever. So I think because we are now suffering from what is the China resources boom backlash, so the Chinese aren't buying as much iron ore and copper as they used to.
That's right.
We're now trying to boost our revenue by selling uranium to India. Yes, that won't cause any problems.
That's right. What about the unfashionable coal? We sit on
coal.
We sit on one of the world's largest quantities storehouse of coal, and it's now become unfashionable to sell it because everyone else is going green. We've actually stopped being green now, and we've reversed everything that was ever been done to make us green, and now coal's awesome. Yeah, but no one wants it. So I think we'll start making carvings out of it, and
Actually, my grandfather. No, seriously, my grandfather had a ring that was carved out of coal, which has a Celtic cross on it. It was given to him by the mine workers in his district as a sign of respect or something or other. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you can actually craft into jewelry. Having said that, though, because you mentioned the Greens, I listen to Parliament. Yeah, I'm a very sad kind of guy, but I do listen to Parliament radio in Australia. And the only people that made any sense in the senatorial debate that is happening right now, they're talking about pushing through certain measures, were the Greens.
No, really.
In fact, I would like the Greens to be on our show because it's the same message. It is exactly the same message we're bringing out here. In fact, this is what this lady said. I forget her name, but she was a senator, Green senator, and she said, "Well, how is it possible that we're giving these super profit organizations like banks and mining conglomerates even more money and a license to make money? And in fact, we could fund our whole deficit. We could fund our entire budget, in fact, by simply taxing the banks and the mining concerns properly, like they do overseas. Australia has the most profitable banks in the world, not in the region. You heard me right. The most profitable banks in the world. They posted the Big Four in the world. They posted the Big Four banks posted a $30 billion profit. $30 billion profit, not revenue.
And how many million people do we have, Mickey?
We're scratching 30. Yeah, we're scratching 30, guys. So the population of Greater New York.
Less than a tenth of the population of the US, and each US bank would be loving to make one of those profits, but they don't.
Do you know what that means, though? That these banks are making $1,000 of each Australian citizen. $1,000 of each man, woman, and child.
I like that.
There you go.
Hang on. There he is.
Boom.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, it comes as a big surprise. One of the big things that surprised the world about India was when they let off their first nuke. If no one knows that, America heard it but didn't know where it was, and they actually captured an image of the cloud, the mushroom cloud, in one of their surveillance flyovers. And it was, it went, what? Who? It's India? Yeah, really? And it was quite a big surprise for them. Like, I have to say, I talked about geo changes last week, and how much is changing, and look, the Northern Hemisphere is copying what is like we copped for 10 years, and that's the heat and the floods and everything's going on crazy. Pakistan isn't adverse to floods. I mean, it's usually the monsoon season, they get flooded. But they've got some of the biggest floods right now. It's going crazy over there. So I'd like you just to Google it and have a look. It's something else. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I don't want to talk about too much of it. It's just appalling. No one likes flooding. We know that America had some really horrendous floods last year, and also what looked like fracking incidents, where fracking sand bubbled up like when you put a Mentos into diet soda. Yeah, Becky?
I'm with you.
If you put a Mentos into a diet soda, it all comes out the top. Well, what happened was it looked like some fracking incidents that have occurred because of that same thing. The pressurized, liquidized sand has spilled out and flooded down canyons. It's awful, yeah? I'm going to say fracking's bad. I don't think it's a tried and true way of doing things, and certainly everyone who is a fracking denier who says it's fantastic, go to the places whose groundwater is poisoned, whose you know they've lost land and there's been geo changes and earthquakes where there never was, but now there's fracking there. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah, fracking is not a good idea by any stretch of the imagination, guys. It really isn't.
They tell us it's great because it's going to elongate the natural gas reserves, but you know, look, we could all be electrical and just move away from all of those things anyway. Anyway, moving on. Yellowstone. Now, I ask everyone who's fans of the show, if you're just listening to this on YouTube, hi to whoever you are, thank you for listening, but can you find me some data? Can you find me data on Yellowstone quakes from January 1st this year? Because I'm having all sorts of problems trying to find a single chunk. Yeah, you can get it for this month, but you can't get historical data going back to the beginning of the year. I really want it. I'm putting together, I got 40,000 individual pieces for the last, since 1975 or whatever, but I don't have this year. And just for those, I'm not going to go over it too much, but Yellowstone is 2,000 times bigger than Mount St. Helens, should it go off. Yeah? Its seismicity is increasing. It's active, and as we've mentioned before, the USA has made a deal with Australia, Brazil and Argentina to house millions of US citizens should it go off. Now, Meki, just like the seed bank, right, and sending human genome to humans to Mars to diversify risk, you know, you don't put these things in place unless there's something to worry about. You would never start a deal, right?
No. Look, and having said that, I have to actually congratulate the U.S. government on being that far-sighted. This is actually not a bad thing, right? I mean, because the thing is, with Yellowstone, I'm not saying it's going to happen definitively. However, it is a high likelihood that it will erupt, even within our lifetime potentially, because the activity has been increasing, like Dave has said, and it is in fact growing yet. In potential release capacity. So if it does happen, all of North America will be affected, and most of the northern hemisphere will in fact be affected. And it's as you notice, all these countries are in the southern hemisphere: Australia, Brazil, Argentina.
That's right.
Because the Americans know that everybody else is going to have their own problems, right? They're not talking to Canada or Europe to take on citizens because they probably won't have capacity. They could have
very well done that if they weren't going to be negatively affected by the outcome.
Correct. So yeah, it is a very dangerous thing. There's another one, segueing, I guess. We have some news here about the Icelandic volcano, right? And Dave has put some information together that says that there's fear a subglacial eruption might be imminent. Now, I don't know if you remember this, guys, but
this information comes directly from the Iceland government.
Yep. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but a couple of years ago, an Icelandic volcano actually stopped all European air traffic. In fact, air traffic across the Atlantic as well, because of the cloud plume. Do you recall this, guys? Well, this could be the same thing or worse. Okay?
Absolutely. Now, I found a live feed for you, and I've posted that into the chat as well. If you're interested in watching it, it was daylight there a while ago, but it's now dark, so you'll have to wait until it comes daylight to see anything real.
And more importantly, the area is closed off. Okay, around that volcano, that is. And apparently, people have been arrested that tried to gain access. So it is two scenarios, right? It's too dangerous, and they don't want people to go there. Or second scenario, which is preferred by the tinfoil headers, which is us, is that they're hiding something, right? Something might be going on that we should not be privy to. So again, we don't know, but certainly something seems to be brewing there.
They're actually patrolling in the air and on the ground. And they've arrested people trying to attempt to get into it, and they say this is. I love this quote. This is the area won't open anytime soon, and there is a risk things could change at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And just to let you know that the ice cap is 500 meters thick, just a little less than half a mile thick. That's a lot of water. Let's just say this, Mickey. No harbour is 500 meters deep.
No.
The harbours
that's
we
very
live
deep,
around,
guys.
that is extremely deep. It's a lot of water, and should it suddenly melt or give way or be propelled into the air through a large explosion, we could see rain for a month.
Yep.
Okay, so if this was superheated, put in the atmosphere, it could rain for a considerable long time, right? It's a very
Maybe
it's a lot of work.
40 days.
40 days,
What?
40 nights. I love the sound of that, Mickey. Onto another one, just to keep you guys updated. This is the World Health Organization, and it's in regards to Ebola. And I just want to say, I mentioned this figure to a friend of mine today, a close friend of the show, by the way, and today he was, Mickey, one of our close friends of the show, is going up to a national park near me, with a camera, and he said he's identified another object carved into the rock like the spaceman that we've seen. Yes, absolutely. So he's gone up there with the camera. He's going to get some more footage for us. So that's great. And that's not the one we saw. It's another one. But he said he saw the one that we have, and he said, I saw that there at this place, and he's going to go up and film it. So that's great.
Wow.
But I have to say, I was telling my friend about this story that I was about to read, and he's into figures. He's into maths. He's a statistician. He knows who he is. Love his work. And he said, when he commented on this, and he said, I said to him, nearly all of this is from the World Health Organization. Nearly all of the cases of EVD, which is Ebola, are a result of human-to-human transmission. Right?
Yep.
Where 47% of the current outbreak are surviving. 47%, which is pretty low death rate compared to what it can be, up to 90%. It says that the World Health Organization responds to the urgent need to dramatically scale up the international response. They're urging everyone to, from an international basis, to make tactical steps towards ending this. Nearly 40% of the total number of reported cases have occurred within the past 3 weeks, Mickey.
Yep.
A little under half of all the cases in this latest outbreak have occurred in the last 3 weeks.
It's not slowing down, is it?
That's an exponential rise compared to what it was like before. Also, the World Health Organization guidelines aim to stop ongoing Ebola. This is their goal, their aim. Stop the transmission worldwide within 6 to 9 months. Now, I started to do some very quick calculations in Excel, and I was astounded that if the current rate of increase, we're talking millions of dead.
Yep.
Millions of dead within the 6 to 9 month period.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. That's astronomical.
Yeah, and the thing is this is just the Ebola-related deaths. We spoke about the knock-on effects, because what happens is that these health clinics are shutting down because the health officials are dead.
Yep.
Doctors, nurses, care personnel, they shut down hospitals. So if you're bleeding from your head, or you're gonna give birth, or maybe you got a case of meningitis, whatever, you can't go to the hospital because it's closed. All the doctors are dead. Because the health officials usually I'm talking about the East and Central African countries, they're the first ones to die because they can't protect themselves against infection.
So just on that, Mickey, listen to this. This is the CDC advice. If you are traveling to, this is the new place it's been outbroken in, which is the Congo, please make sure you do the following. Practice careful hygiene. Avoid contact with blood and bodily fluids of people who are sick with Ebola. Do not handle items that may have come in contact with an infected person's blood or bodily fluids. Avoid funeral or burial rituals, blah, blah, blah. Make sure you don't do that because of the handling of the body. Right? But there's one down here that'll make sense. We all know about the avoid contact with wild animals. and with raw, uncooked bushmeat.
Yep. That's apes, guys. By
That's
the way,
right.
apes.
Now,
Don't eat apes.
how's this one? Avoid hospitals where Ebola patients are being treated. That's just what Becky said.
Yep.
So if you're there or wherever you happen to be where that virus is, don't go to the hospital at all. The US Embassy or consulate is often able to provide advice on facilities that are suitable for your needs. Right, this is tailored for the US traveller. The US Embassy in blah, blah, blah. Okay, so seek medical care immediately if you develop a fever greater than 38 degrees or 101.5 Fahrenheit. In addition, symptoms such as severe headache, muscle pain, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach, blah, 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 bruising. Okay, I have to say, the last part of this is something you should take into consideration. Limit your contact with other people when you travel to the doctor. Not at the doctor's, just when you travel. It's basically saying, it just says, limit your contact with other people. Avoid public transportation. Do not travel anywhere except to the doctor's office or hospital. So, for the traveller, don't travel. That's hilarious. And I've got some figures here to mention before Meki, because he's dropped off again. Let's see if we can get him back. So think about this. The World Health Organization says there's 3,707 suspected and confirmed case count with 1,800 dead, 1,848 dead, to be honest. It then splits it up into different areas, but I found that website of theirs does not take into consideration anyone outside of West Africa. That's only the West African detail, whereas there's in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there's an additional 24 cases with 13 dead, which is still fits into the same consistent amount of dead per people carrying the disease. Last but not least, I know on the financial prospects that no one in any financial position at all publicly is saying anything but that there's a gloomy outlook for an additional 2 years. I have to say one thing that was extraordinary about that when I read that, when it said there was no hope for anything for the next 2 years, was that the graphs that they touted for the last month, I had to zoom in so closely. I had to zoom in on the graph about the financial outlook, Meki, that it was like measuring, the Empire State Building in millimeters. I had to zoom in so hard onto the graph to see that there was a rise, and when I noticed the scale on the side, they've zoomed in. And so I found the graph that was referenced, and they zoomed out, and it's like all the way down except for this little turn, and that's what they zoomed in on, this little uptake. Oh, things are going great. No, they're not. Forget it, they're not. So you won't find any financial advisor anywhere saying how awesome everything's going. And it does paint a gloomy picture for the future. And the gloomy picture, I think, includes all of the plans that they've got. I think they all know what's going on. Meki, what about that 4,000 to 5,000 people that the NATO forces have put together as a spearhead, pardon me, force which can be deployed within 48 hours?
Yeah,
to anywhere,
rapid response force.
Yeah, rapid response force.
We are moving to a world army there, right?
That is the world army.
Mm-hmm.
The quote from NATO was, it's between 4,000 and 5,000 people who will be troops, and they'll be deployed within 48 hours, or deployable quick response team as named Spearhead, but which will also be backed up by an additional Navy, Air Force, and Army troops.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have air and sea, and they'll also have the backing of the Army for supplies. So this isn't like a contingency. It's not like a. It's more than a battalion. They're putting a frontline force in there, and it includes the Ukraine troops as well. Everyone from NATO signed into it, and this is the beginning. You think building FEMA camps was there? You think you're on board if you know about FEMA camps? Well, guess what? They've just made a world army, where New World Order just around the corner.
Well, think about it. This is now all coming. It's actually coming together rather nicely for those folks. Right? We spoke about this before, and if you really think about it, I mean, I was always troubled. I mean, how could this all happen? Why wouldn't the American people protest more? How could the international community let them? Well, the truth is this: if you have disease, if you have terrorist threats, even nuclear terrorist threats, and so forth, if you have now the stirrings in the Middle East of an Islamic state, a caliphate, as it were, reaching out its tentacles into the surrounding countries, Syria, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and so forth. And you add that all up, and all of a sudden, including the Ukraine as well, the issues there, all of a sudden, all these things that we've been looking and have been watching building up are no longer far-fetched. Yes, you will probably need curfews and camps. Mm-hmm. You know what happened in World War II? All the wrong people were put into camps in America. Japanese. If you were a Japanese origin person,
right.
They would put you in a camp. Even they did it to the Germans as well, to some extent, right? Mm-hmm. Even though your father or your brother might be fighting in Europe or in the Asian theater of war. Okay, so these things are all of a sudden they seem well plausible and reasonable, right, Dave?
It certainly does. You know that if you had a house and you were sharing with a number of nationalities and suddenly a war broke out, with your neighbour, for instance, and your neighbour was one of those other nationalities that shared your house, would you be able to trust them? Well, that's the way that the government treats anyone. You might have been 5 generations here, but that doesn't mean that you won't have some kind. I'm playing devil's advocate. You won't have some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? National
pride.
Pride for the motherland. At some point, you may feel that you need to do something about it. So. Look, that's the justification for it. I'm not saying it's right, because I don't. The people make the choice to live in one country and make their new home there, and for them that's probably the new motherland. It's new where they are. And I'm sorry to use the term motherland, but everyone comes from somewhere. Us in Australia, it's only 200 years old for the people who live here now. For most of the people that lost out to the new technology, where do they live? I don't know. It's sad. So
it is.
Thinking about the FEMA camps, yeah, man, I see this coming. I see whatever's, we're being polarized around the world. I was listening to an original radio broadcast about the Iraq War and it lines up to today. It lines up to this ISIL, ISIS, IS. They don't even call themselves ISIS, but we're calling them ISIS. I saw a quote. Yeah. I saw a quote from one of the who are they? I've actually got an image of them. I'll find it quickly. It was one of the. Here it is. This guy says, and I'll put it up for those on YouTube. This is Robin Cook, former British Foreign Secretary. Okay, he died in 2005, but he says there is no Al Qaeda. He says, his quote is, "The truth is that here." Sorry, the truth is. No, I'll say it right. The truth is that there is no Islamic army or any terrorist group by the name of Al Qaeda, and any informed intelligence officer knows this. But there is a propaganda campaign to make the public believe in the presence of an identified entity representing the devil only in order to drive TV watchers to accept a unified international leadership for a war against terrorism. The country behind this propaganda is the USA. Now,
Correct.
he didn't live long after making that statement. He died while hiking in the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah, that's very dangerous, guys. There's all those bears and tigers. You know, they'll rip you apart.
And the people
No.
with you tied up with a cigarette in your mouth and a blindfold, saying you won't say this again.
Yeah, and that's prophetic. Now, bear in mind that this is exactly correct. There is no organization called Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda in Arabic means the net or the network. That's all it means, right? So it is something, but you need something that you can galvanize behind or against, for that matter, right? You need some catchphrase like the Nazis, you know, or Al Qaeda, yeah, or the Taliban, or something, or ISIS, for that matter. You need something that represents evil, right? And if you can do that, because people are mostly simple, right? No offense to anyone here, but people need some simple memes they can tie their mind to. And the Americans, and in fact, marketing in general, don't make no mistake, this is all a marketing campaign here, right? This is all about marketing and trying to sell you a story. And they're brilliant at that. And you need these catchphrases. You need these groups of evildoers, right? The axis of evil, right?
Axis,
all of
that's
these.
right.
You need simplistic language, because simplistic language sells a message, okay? Because we all learn language simply when we are children, right? In kindergarten. That language, that simplicity stays with us throughout life. Most marketing messages are simple. Very, very simple, right? Most of them are actually sex. Sex is mostly it, but then in the United States case, the message is fear. Okay? So these are very primal things, very primal messages we're getting from the marketing people. Fear, the fear will drive you to buy. Fear will drive you to sit home and watch the news. Fear will drive you to distrust your neighbor if he wears a turban or whatever. So it is very effective, I have to say.
It is quite effective. And one of the things that I'm seeing now is a parallel to this. I'm seeing this. ISIS. What ISIS? Yeah, every single year there are a couple of reporters that are killed. They're captured, killed, some are let go.
Actually, more than that. There are scores that are killed every year, to be honest.
But when the internet first started, I remember seeing some beheading footage from people in the same kind of war, but there were Russian people being beheaded because Russia was in Iraq. So
can I give you a statistic on that? 71 journalists were killed last year. 71 journalists.
Wow.
Okay, 71.
And so the whole world uproar because a single person was beheaded, and they've created a brand new name for and they don't even call themselves that. They're not even ISIS. Yeah. Why the whole world needs to become involved in exactly the same thing all over again is beyond me. I do not understand. Couldn't we just Mekki, I'm going to ask you the question, right? Because I'm not asking listeners, right? Mekki, between you and me, right? Why do you think it is that they're doing this all over again? Do they not finish? What's the go?
Well, it worked in the first instance, didn't it? So if something works, you do it again.
Oh.
And no, it is not finished. It's never finished, right?
Yeah.
Let's be very clear here. The War of Terror very quickly was named or renamed into the Long War. Okay, War of Terror. That's nebulous. The Long War, much better. Very 1984, by the way, guys. Right?
I like that.
And yeah,
fighting
it works,
wars
Dave.
that they don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't.
That's
in fact,
from the book.
Yeah, 100%. If you ask people why they're over there, they say, we're protecting freedom, we're protecting democracy. Ever since
Rubbish.
October 13th,
Yeah.
ever since October 13th, I can't name the real date.
No, we can't name the real name.
We'll get shut off again. But ever since that date, the one thing that Americans and to some extent other Western nations have been losing is their freedom. Their guaranteed rights. Like fair trial and no detention without a good cause or some kind of warrant. No spying on citizens, which all out the window. It's all out the window since that day. Okay, and so you're not in fact there. And I hate to say this to the GIs because I respect the work they do. Right? I mean, it takes a lot to put your life in the service of others.
Yes.
But you're not protecting freedom and democracy. That's a myth. You're in fact helping to undermine freedom and democracy, because the politicians and the elite, the corporate elite, and this is what we're going to talk about today some more. They are behind this. They're making the money and they're sending you to die. And I'm pretty sure that you didn't go to an Ivy League college if you're sitting somewhere in a trench in Afghanistan, Iraq, or somewhere in the Middle East, or in fact elsewhere. That goes to all the soldiers out there. The rich usually don't send their children. George Bush Jr., he served in the National Guard as a pilot. Yes, right. Okay, then. That's fair enough, I guess. Some do. I'm not disparaging of all politicians, but most do not, especially if they come from moneyed families.
Yeah, that's true.
So Dave, the answer, that was a long answer. The short answer is it worked, right? it just did. And it hasn't finished yet. No, definitely not.
That's just so disappointing. I really thought it was done, dusted, and we can just go home, and then everyone else, we can turn off, having to carry your personal effects in a plastic bag. 13 years later, we haven't seen another incident. They talk it up every time people get bored of it. And I'm just not seeing it. Yeah?
Yep.
I really don't see it. So it's terribly disappointing to see that this is still going on and that we're living in less and less freedoms. And, but anyway, our show today is about, what was it, October when?
13th.
13th of October. And that's what our show is about today. And there's no point in talking about the rest. So why don't we just recap? Because last week was pretty hectic with all of the dropouts, and I really don't know if we can. There hasn't been many views on that video because it was all so disjointed.
Yeah, no, we have to apologize for that. I mean, there's not much we could do about it. I mean, Dave was actually knocked off the air entirely. Mm-hmm. My Skype kept hanging up. It made it very difficult to operate under those conditions. But the second hour of that particular show is mostly intact. Yeah. So as a quick recap, though, we talked about the groups that potentially and in fact in reality profited from October 13th and the terrorist actions. As well as some of the actions that went on before that date, the short selling of stock and so forth. We spoke to some extent about the leaseholding of the World Trade Center. We spoke about the people involved in the insurance claims afterwards. We talked about the Patriot Act and the Office of Homeland Security, all the things that came out of that particular date, all the things that were enabled by that date. And maybe the biggest thing that the American people had at that point was global goodwill. The Americans had a lot of global goodwill following that terrible day, which was very quickly squandered, very, very quickly. And in fact, the Bush administration, I think, made it a sport to see how quickly we can actually, anger our friends and allies. Forget about our enemies. We're talking about our friends and allies here, right? Mm-hmm. And it keeps on going with all the spy scandals, the things that are, or even senior members of government of other governments have been spied upon and their phones were tapped and so forth. So that's just a quick recap of what we spoke about last week. And I want to with Dave here. Let's jump into the people that have profited quite a bit from this, and this is the corporate profiteering, Dave, we're going to talk about here, I think, because we covered Larry Silverstein to some extent. We're going to have some more on him later in the show. Yep. But the corporate profiteering in the wake of 9/11, October 13th.
That's right.
Was
you
shocking.
all know what we're talking about. We don't have to mention the date again.
Yeah. So now it is widely known, of course, that the oil and gas companies and weapons manufacturers and so forth, like the military-industrial complex, including oil, soared. The profits soared immediately following that day, in the years following that particular attack. And that was largely as a consequence of the occupations of Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay, both of which were predicated on the myth that Al-Qaeda perpetrated the attack. Now, I say this advisedly. I believe, and so does Dave, that Al-Qaeda was again, it didn't exist as an organization, yes, but I mean, there were people there certainly that are terrorists, of course they are. But I don't think that it was them that carried out that particular attack, because there's just too many things that don't add up and too many people that actually benefited from it. Yep. Okay, so the quarterly earnings of the biggest oil and gas corporations surged after the US and UK invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. And this is from Business Week of 23rd of February 2004, right? This is an excerpt from their report. And the 2003 US corporate profits were the biggest in 31 years. the biggest in 31 years in 2003. The group's earnings, this is the big oil, by the way, more than doubled to $45.2 billion. Okay, and I've got the numbers here. I think we shared them again. Royal Dutch Shell, in 2002, they earned $4.5 billion. In 2003, $8.2 billion. ExxonMobil, 4.7 in 2002, 17.2 billion in 2003. British Petroleum, 3.4 in 2002, 5.9 in 2003. And Chevron Texaco tripled their earnings from 1.1 to 3.5 billion in 2003. Just as a quick aside, I need to say this here very quickly. Now, this is how much their money they made. Now, I want to repeat how much money our banks make in Australia. Profit, $30 billion.
Yep. That's not all of them. That's one of them.
This fades,
that's each.
just the $30 billion. Now, this fades into insignificance if you actually think about it, right? Profit, not these are earnings. So this is revenue. What I've shared with you. The Australian banks make $30 billion in profit. Anyway, okay. So now is the profits by subcontractors to the largest oil and gas corporations such as Halliburton and Schlumberger also surged. Okay, all of those corporations shared in the flow of oil and gas from war-torn Iraq. Not only that, though, they also have the reconstruction contracts, especially Halliburton, and then there's of course the Carlyle Group, which we spend a little bit of time on in the future. But essentially, we when I say we, the West, we bombed the bejesus out of Iraq and spent a lot of money doing it. We've got the figures for you later in the show. And then we rebuilding it. We're sending our guys in to rebuild it. There you go. Here's billions of dollars. We just destroyed it. Now we have to buy new missiles, which will cost billions. And I want to give you $1 billion contract to just rebuild the infrastructure, which I just blew into nothingness.
That's
right? This is what we're looking at.
How can you make money in both ways?
It's amazing. It's in fact, look, it's genius. It's and I don't mean this in a good way necessarily,
he definitely does not.
But it is genius. I mean, come on. I mean, you like the kid in the playground. You build a sandcastle. He comes and he kicks it over, right? And then if you're smart, he bring in his big buddies, with their big sand buckets, and they rebuild that sandcastle for your lunch money. Right? That's what we're talking about here. Right? It is genius to do it that way. I mean, and it's not a good thing. I'm not saying this, but what I'm saying is, if you're this way inclined, if you're an evil person, I don't want to say the slang word here, but this is exactly what you would do. Now, Chevron Texaco showed a record quarterly profit in the first 3 months of 2004, $2.56 billion, as the price of gas in the US rose despite the output of oil from Iraq also rising towards the pre-invasion level of 2.4 million barrels per day. So not only did we have more production than before, but we also sold it for more money. So we had more, and it was more expensive. Do you remember the cold winters, guys, that you had back in the early 2000s? When heating gas was expensive and all that stuff, and heating oil. That's why, to foster the corporate profits here. Now, in 1972, and if we're going back here a bit, right? Before the enormous corporate mergers that we saw in the last decade, the Chase Manhattan Bank held 5.2% of the voting stock of Mobil Oil and 4.5% of Atlantic Richfield. They're now Arco. Now, through ownership of shares or membership on boards of directors, the Rothschild, Rockefeller, and Morgan families also controlled the largest U.S. insurance, pharmaceutical, and food corporations in 1972. Okay? In 1972. So this is something that people forget a bit here, right? Now, profit also surged since October 13 for corporations which manufacture weapons. What a shock. The Department of Defense awarded, right, to the top 5 contractors, weapons contractors, contracts $66.4 billion. $66.4 billion. Up from 43.5. So an increase of $23 billion prior to October 13th. Okay? It's just, we have to be safe now. We have to be safe. We've got to do it, right? That's insane, guys. Lockheed Martin in 2001 made $14 billion. $14 billion. That's reasonable. Yep. 2003, $21 billion. $21 billion. Northrop Grumman, 5.2 2001, 11.1 2003 because we have to replenish our stocks. We blew it all up. General Dynamics 4.7, 8.2 billion. Raytheon from 5.6 to 7.9 billion. So as you can see, from 2001 to 2003, it increased by $23 billion. 23, and that's from the Department of Defense. That's your tax money in America if you're there. 23 billion, okay, in increases. Now, I love this one. No, well, I don't love it, but this is the statistic that I love. During the first 24 hours of the 2003 war on Iraq, the US fired 500 of Raytheon's Tomahawk missiles at a cost of $600,000 per missile. Are we still surprised? Are we still surprised at the massive profit increase here?
Wow.
No. In fact, the Navy depleted their stock of Tomahawks. They launched them all of them. Do you know what happens with weapons that are not launched or used? They have to be dealt with. They have to be put in storage. They have to be diffused. It's costly.
Exactly.
It's much cheaper to just use them and blow stuff up. Much cheaper, right? Guys, 500 missiles. Each missile, $600,000. 600,000. That's more than my house. Okay? Come on, guys. Now, what is less well known is the profiteering of the insurance industry. What? You say, how can that be? That can't be right because, the thing is, they paid out all the insurance claims. Yes. However, now this is Berkshire Hathaway, and I also want to give you the numbers for AIG, American Insurance Giant. Yeah, that's it. Now in the year 2000, I'm talking about profits only here, right? In the year 2000, the profits for Berkshire Hathaway were $1.5 billion. In 2003, after a slump in 2002, big payouts from the event, $4.2 billion. So they added another $3 billion. And for AIG, it was $5 billion in profit, which then went up to $5.5 billion profits. But the sales soared from $40 billion to $69 billion.
Yeah.
Between 2000 and 2003. Now, in response to October 13th, I should say, insurers are already raising prices by 100%. This is the Wall Street Journal, November 15, 2001. Wall Street Journal, November 15, 2001. Moreover, in response to, I have to say the date here, September 11, insurers are already raising prices by 100% or more on some lines of commercial and industrial insurance. For much of the 1990s, carriers had engaged in a price war, keeping premiums relatively low. The prospect of large payouts related to the attacks gave the industry grounds for demanding substantial increases. Right? It's the same in the road. The more people have accidents in the road, the worse they're driving, the more you are being penalized, even if you're a good driver, because you are covering off their insurance premiums.
That's right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're with me here? Okay, now, in a speech to Berkshire Hathaway stockholders, this is Warren Buffett, warned that a dirty nuclear bomb attack in the US was inevitable. There's another tidbit for you. Warren Buffett said, this is shareholders of insurance. This is great, right? If you're a shareholder, then everybody will go out there and get insurance against a nuclear bomb attack. Wonderful, let's do that. It's insane, guys. It is nuts. It's crazy. It's all kinds of. This is serious money we're talking about here. This is not dollars and dimes and pennies and whatever. These are billions of dollars. People are making obscene amounts of money on the death and misery of millions. Okay, that's a fact.
No argument from me, Mackie. I'll tell you that much.
And it is once you see the hard figures, Dave, right? And you tell me what do you think. But once you see the hard figures, you look at the actual numbers, you go, what? Yeah, something smells funny.
I've forever shown the trend of the 30-year fixed mortgage rate, which from the 70s till now went up to about the 80s, 82, and then it's been on a slow decline ever since. This has been foreseen where we're at right now. It's every man and his dog is trying to make the last squillion out of all of us.
Yes.
Before the inevitable... There's the music before the inevitable ends. So
don't go away, guys, and don't forget to donate. Listener supporter radio. Thank you. Don't go away.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you plan to call in and speak with one of our hosts, please turn down your radio and separate yourself from any background noise and wait for the area code to be called on before you speak. And don't forget, Revolution Radio freedomslips.com is listener supported. So stop by the homepage, freedomslips.com, visit the site support area to help support the host you're listening to's airtime. Thank you. Revolution Radio freedomslips.com, where the truth never sleeps. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mecky's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, as Hawk says, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. Since it is listener-funded radio, and you like what you hear, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button. Push the donate button there on the site support page on the left if you're in the chat. Do that because your donation helps run this station and is greatly appreciated. Yes, help support, and as Hawk said, our... Hang on. our airtime. That's it. I'm pointing towards Mickey. I'd like to say hello to all the new people, and thank you once again. You know, we've had two, count them, 1, 2 donations from a benefactor in the USA, ourselves, Mickey. We had a second one. Thank you to you, and we'll be looking at that. You gave us some advice as well via an email, and I passed it on to Mickey. We're both looking into that. Thank you so much for that, I have to tell you. And we're also glad that you're on board. All the new people, I think at least another 30 people have followed us this week. And Mickey, this is growing out of control.
Is it?
Well, it's like Ebola. It's out of control.
I like it!
Yeah, me too. It's pleasing for us because, you know, this thing, you know, we just talking to a mic, and before we started pushing this also to YouTube, we never knew who was listening, how many people, not who was listening, but the kinds of people who are listening, and now we get a little bit of a demographic there because of YouTube, and it's pretty cool. Thank you so much. And if you were listening to this for the first time, jump into freedomslips.com or go to shinysideout.net, and you can there's links there to the station, and you can enjoy it even more. If you contribute to us, either financially or with information, it's confidential. We're not going to tell anyone who you are, but you know, it may lead to a radio interview with you when you can still be anonymously sort of hidden. If we do it offline, we can affect your voice as well. So, yeah, it's welcome back, Mickey. I'm glad you've got a solid connection this week.
Sweet, yeah, that's better. I'm not using the video, but I probably have to cable up. I'm using Wi-Fi here, guys. I don't know. It just seems strange because whenever I'm not doing the show, it's fine. It's wonderful. You know, not an issue. Yeah. When I do the show, it's odd. Now, I do want to say one thing though. This is really strange. And maybe it ties into why we had issues as well. I'm using McAfee on, and I have to say the name here, on my Microsoft laptop. Okay, I'm doing the show from an Apple machine, but on my Microsoft, as I said, I'm using the McAfee virus scanner, and it tells me here it detected some harmful website, or sorry, a harmful website. And I go, okay, this is strange. Let me see what that was, because I actually did the show when I'm overseas. I do the show from the laptop. And can you guess what the harmful website is?
I do know exactly which one it is. And
it's freedomslips.com. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's harmful for content. And
yes.
And it was registered by one of the, from what I understand, and it's only alleged. I want to get this on camera that I'm doing alleged because I don't know. One of a disgruntled ex-host right-clicked on the website and chose it to be harmful. Therefore, everyone who has McAfee gets that also as a warning. Now, I myself, it's like a collective. I myself have done it. I've informed the McAfee that it's okay, that there's nothing wrong with the website at all. In fact, it's just a radio station, and the reason for it was someone just didn't like it, didn't like what they were talking about. So could you please remove it? And that hasn't happened.
Yeah, of course not. I don't know if you can share the YouTube issues. That's probably not for us to do, but there are some issues around that. If you're long-time listeners, you probably have found that out already. Our tubes are still up on David's channel.
Yes.
The Shiny Side Out channel. You can still get it, guys. But we had 8 pages of YouTube search videos. Now we have 2.
Yeah.
So it's a bit sobering when this happens, but we'll keep on keeping on, because at the end of the day, you know, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. At least that's what I choose to believe.
Yes. Just for those of you who are looking at the live stream, I've got an email here, and it's the NYC ruling limit. So we spoke of this last week, and that was that Larry Pullett Silverstein, is judge limits liability of aviation defendants to replacement cost of the trade towers themselves. and there's a whole bunch of 2.8 billion value, and there's a bit of highlighting there. You'll notice that in the YouTube clip. So I'll leave that up for a little while. Meki, I'd like you to move on to the next topic, and I've got a few images that should line up with some of the topics we're talking about.
Beautiful. Okay, the next one is around another profit motive here: the precious metals that were stored beneath the World Trade Center. Most of you probably don't know this, right? But there were hundreds of millions of dollars worth of precious metals stored in the COMEX vaults beneath WTC4. Okay, and 9/11 Research, which is an organization, published the following story between the, about the discrepancy between the value of precious metals and the value reported recovered in late 2001 following the attack. Okay, so this is a September 2003 story, which has lost none of its, relevance. So missing gold, right? It's the basement of 4 World Trade Center housed vaults that used to store gold and silver bullion, and published articles about precious metals recovered from the World Trade Center ruins in the aftermath of the attack mention less than $300 million worth of gold. Okay, that's what they mentioned, less than $300 million worth of gold. Also, such reports appear to refer to a removal operation conducted in late October of 2001. On November 1, Mayor Rudolph Giuliani announced that more than $230 million worth of gold and silver bars that had been stored in a bomb-proof vault had been recovered. And a New York Times article mentions the following. 2 Brinks trucks, and now Brinks is a security corporation or security firm in the States. 2 Brinks trucks were at Ground Zero on Wednesday to start hauling away the $200 million in gold and silver that the Bank of Nova Scotia had stored in a vault under the Trade Center. A team of 30 firefighters and police officers are helping to move the metals, a task that can be measured practically down to the flake, but has been rounded off at 379,036 ounces of gold and 29,942,619 ounces of silver. Another article gave a figure of 650 million to the value of gold in 4 WTC vault. Unknown, this is the article now, unknown to most people at the time, 650 million in gold and silver was being kept in a special vault 4 floors beneath 4 World Trade Center. The gold and silver were recently recovered. An article in the Times Online gives the following rundown of precious metals that were being stored in WCT vaults belonging to COMEX. COMEX Metal Trading, 3,800 gold bars weighing 12 tons and worth more than $100 million. COMEX clients, 800,000 ounces of gold with a value of about $220 million. COMEX clients, again, 102 million ounces of silver, worth about $430 million. And the Bank of Nova Scotia, $200 million of gold. So if you add that up, that's 630, 830, that's close to $1 billion there. Okay, that's $1 billion in gold and silver. The Times Online article is not clear as to whether the 200 million in gold reported by the Bank of Nova Scotia was part of the 220 million in gold held by COMEX for clients. If so, the total is 750 million, otherwise 950 million, as I said, $1 billion. There appear to be no reports of precious metals discovered between November of 2001 and the completion of excavation several months later. It would seem that at least the better part of $1 billion worth of precious metals went missing. It is not plausible that whatever destroyed the towers vaporized gold and silver, which are heavy, malleable metals that are extremely unlikely to participate in chemical reactions with other materials. Now let me rephrase this. Gold and silver have fairly high melting points. Okay, they're malleable, right? They're soft, yes, but you can't melt them. They melt at very high temperatures. Not only that, they don't corrode, so they don't really react with other materials, with other chemicals, right? They just don't.
Gold will always be gold. Silver will always be silver. It doesn't oxidize, and even if you melt it, well, you're not ruining any of it. It's just melted into another shape.
Yep. The only way that we, or Dave and I, know of actually affecting the molecular structure of gold is if you are melting it to a certain, heating it to a certain point. Okay, and in fact, with electric fire, turn it into a white gold powder. Yes, that's an electrical melting process. Correct. That's the only, and we're pretty sure that didn't happen here. So, by conservative estimates, I'm figuring about $500 million, $500 million worth of gold and silver are missing. What a shock. What a shock. So in the chaos, it's reminiscent of that movie, Die Hard something or other,
It sure
Die Hard with a
is.
Vengeance, right?
Yes.
Where they have these dump trucks carting away the gold after they have like a mock explosion, or no, sorry, a diversionary false flag explosion set up in a subway tunnel, right? So divert attention away from what they're actually doing in the Federal Reserve vault there. So yeah, so again, it would have taken dump trucks and dump trucks to cart out that much gold. I mean, it's a lot of gold, tons and tons of it, guys. It's not an easy task, and again, we don't know what happened, but we know it isn't there. There's a discrepancy. It's a massive discrepancy, and nobody to this day has explained why that is so. To this day, right? That's the key thing here. It's the key takeaway, and this is the reason why we're still bringing this stuff here. It's important to understand that most of the questions that were raised by the attack and the aftermath, and in fact by all the things that happened before, have not yet been answered. There has been no satisfactory explanation. The 9/11 Commission report, toilet paper, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't address any of these things. None of it. And in fact, it doesn't even really address the failure of the system, if such it was, in fact. Anyway, Dave, what's the next one, sir? The next profit motive for us?
Are we talking poppies?
I think we might be.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Let me just. I was just going to put a. Oh dear. Pardon me. Pardon me, everyone. I'm still suffering from this stupid lung thing. Prior to the invasion of Afghanistan in late 2001, the Taliban government had dramatically cut the production of opium. Sounds good. The plant, whose derivatives are the raw materials for heroin. The US-led invasion predicated on the idea that Osama bin Laden had orchestrated the October 13th attack, had the effect of restoring opium production to pre-2001 levels. Opium from Afghanistan is the source of most of the world's illicit heroin. Most of the world's opium is grown in Central Asia, the Golden Triangle, where the borders of Thailand, Laos and Burma meet, is famous for its production of opium. Now, I actually saw a Top Gear episode recently, the British Top Gear, where they drove through there, and that was very funny. But in 1992, the production of Afghanistan exceeded it in the wake of the US attack. So the US has gone through, and the poppies and opium sales, cultivation went up. Since the US-led invasion of Afghanistan in October of 2001, the Golden Crescent opium trade had soared. Just extraordinary. So what really, there's a picture here, and I want to share this with you, and I'll see if I can do that in a minute. Hang on 1 second. I should be able to do it. Add screen region. There we go. This comes from the Washington Post, everybody. So anyone who's on YouTube should be able to see this one. And apologies for its poor quality. So the opium poppy cultivation exploded in the year following the attack, as the graphic shows, and you can clearly see how it was only in the top of Afghanistan, and then it blew out in the bottom. Yeah, so that's pretty much all that graphic indicates. Heroin's role in the illegal and legal economies. The heroin trade remains enormously lucrative because of its illegality. Vast profits generated in the illicit drug economy are laundered through legal enterprises, such as many of the world's largest banks. The financial magazine Barron's reporting on these events spells out the close links between the drug trade and the business, and big business. Big money, or big heroin, I suppose. It states the take from the drug traffic is approximately 500 billion annually, and these
boom!
I know, there you go, boom, what are you doing? And these funds are entirely integrated with the US banking system, processed through Morgan Stanley, Chase Manhattan, Citibank, and First National. The $500 billion expresses itself in controlling shares in major blue chip US corporations such as Ford Motor Company, AT&T, and General Electric. One cannot distinguish the operations of the mob or the drug traffic from the normal workings of financial capital in the United States. And there's a link there which I'm going to post in for the people.
Now, guys, I want you to just quickly reflect on this. I mean, Dave has just shared with us something that is going to the heart of our economy. All right, now, Wall Street is being kept afloat, to the best of my knowledge, by drug transactions, laundering drug money, guys. Because Wall Street essentially is a big casino. Now, what's the best way to launder money? Now, there's some complicated, you can do things around the bank account with computers, and if you're a whiz, you can probably get away with it. But the easiest way to launder money, and trust me, I know, is through a casino. Very simply, because guess what? And nobody keeps any record of how much money you bring into the casino, number one. Nobody. There's no record, okay?
That's right.
I mean, they know how much they take in, but they don't know how much you brought in, okay? And then, nobody really takes a record of how much you take out. I mean, even if they did, they don't keep books on the tables on like how much you win, okay? So you sit at the table, you play blackjack, or you play roulette, or poker, or it doesn't really matter what it is that you play. Your winnings you will take, and the table will register a loss. Yeah, that's tabulated. But nobody knows how much you took or how much you lost. That's the point I'm trying to make, okay? They know how much they win and lose overall, of course, they keep very good books, but they don't know the individuals. Now, therefore, you could walk in with $100 million, and you could walk out with $100 million. Except once you walk out with it, it's receipted from the casino. Because you cash in your chips again, right? And you might not necessarily, you can ask for a receipt if you want to. So, I won it. Really? Sure you did. Proof that I didn't. Now, Wall Street...
I walked in with $1, and voila, the next thing I know, I've got $100 billion in my pocket.
Boom, right? Yeah, exactly. Now, Wall Street essentially is a casino. Oh, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Can I tell you why it is? Because people are making bets on how things will happen in the future. That's exactly what you do in a casino. You're betting on certain chance outcomes. Now, people will tell you, I've got a system, I can beat blackjack, and then the Wall Street guys will tell you the same thing. Oh, we've got a system. We know which stocks are going up and which are going to go down. They don't know. Okay? Nobody knows, okay? That's the thing. I mean, some people are smart. They can figure some things out. They do okay by the stock market. But the only people that are controlling the stock market are the super rich. That's it. If you have enough money...
You can influence the outcome.
Correct. If you don't, you are just on the wave. You're just a little bobbing up and down. You're driftwood. Okay, that's what you are. You're driftwood on the crest of financial engineering. That's the wave crest. Okay. So and underneath you are the leviathans of the deep. The Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the super mega rich. All those guys. They can actually determine which way the stock market is going to go. And then, of course, the natural disasters, but sometimes they're not so natural. There are wars, and trust me, everybody knows when a war is coming. Like all the rich guys do. You don't, but they do.
They do.
So it is essentially a big casino, and you're gambling, okay? There's no guarantee that you will get your money back. You should really do yourself a favor and read the book, The Wolf of Wall Street. And then also, I think, An Economic Hitman. Those two books, read them. Don't watch the movie. Read the book.
If you do happen to know what's going to happen in the stock market for any particular stock, then that's insider trading. Because you're the only person who knows.
Yeah.
Or you work at that company, it's going to take another company. You're not allowed to do anything with it.
Apparently that's illegal, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, if you're not connected, if you're not a made man,
that's
then
right.
It's illegal, absolutely. But if you're, it's impossible for those guys not to know. They go to the same clubs, they play golf in the same places, they drink the same $5 million bottles of champagne or whatever it is, right? Yeah. They probably have the same call girls as well. But the point is that it is the drug trade these days that is underlying, and make no mistake either about this. This goes back hundreds of years. Do you know what the British East India Company was making its money from?
Not tea.
Opium!
Yes.
Opium, the Chinese. Again, Google the Opium Wars. I won't go into some detail because it goes too far off topic, but look up the Opium Wars that were being fought in China in the 19th century, the Opium Wars. Okay? And you will know exactly what I mean. It's the same thing that happened to America after the Vietnam War. After Vietnam, there was a surge in heroin coming into the US. A surge. And how? It was, in fact, the military that brought it in, the CIA, in fact. They started the heroin trade into the United States to fund their operations. They created the base, if you will, the users in the United States, in the ghettos and so forth. It was the CIA to fund their operations. I don't think too many people deny this anymore these days, right?
No.
And we do know that there was a spike, a massive spike after the Vietnam War, because guess what? Opium also comes out of the Golden Triangle there, Vietnam, Laos, Burma, where it's growing up in the jungles. Okay, so that's a fact, guys. It's horrible, but it's unfortunately true. Now, okay. Enough doom and gloom. Let's talk about the looming peak oil crisis as a pretext.
I finally got a picture of a poppy up there too, and we're going on to the oil crisis.
Nah, that's all good, man. That's all good. Now, some of us believe the peak oil crisis is a real thing. Others did not. I listened to subject matter experts that held both points of view. If the peak oil crisis is not a real thing, it is certainly perceived to be a real thing. So what I mean by that is, if the crisis is not real, it is a manufactured crisis, meaning that people will be in fear of it either way. So if it's real, then okay, we have a problem. If it's not real, people are still afraid because it is being sold as real. So for our intents and purposes, whether peak oil is real or not doesn't matter, because it is being sold as real. Okay, you get my drift there, guys?
Yep.
Now, essentially, peak oil, what does it mean? Well, peak oil essentially is a time when we have reached the maximum production of oil in a country, for example. So America, in fact, came to that sometime in the 70s. Okay, that's when America hit peak oil. And I think we're approaching peak oil globally, unless we've already passed it, very rapidly, according to some of the experts. Okay, now, the idea that peak oil was in fact a motive for these attacks is supported by the way the Bush administration exploited the attack to invade and occupy both Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, Afghanistan, I spoke about this before. There was a gas pipeline meant to come from Central Asia through Afghanistan, into the Persian Gulf. But of course, that the Taliban didn't play ball anymore, and they scrapped that. So that it would have cost several billions more to build a pipeline to Turkey, much more expensive. Okay, and plus, Central Asian gas is really what you want. And then, of course, Iraq has got one of the largest oil reserves in the world. Now, by controlling the extraction and distribution of these natural resources in those regions, and intimidating other neighboring states that are still sovereign, the peak oil crisis could potentially be hidden from American consumers for a few more years. Okay, while the profiteers in the oil and in industrial military complex reap massive profits, obscene profits, profits that make you gag at the very thought of it. Now, many people identify this idea that peak oil was a primary motive. However, a researcher, Michael Ruppert, was one of the first to do that. Michael Ruppert, out of the wilderness, he was a central figure in the 9/11 Truth Movement, and he committed suicide. He's no longer with us. I was privileged enough to hear him speak at a Nexus conference some years ago. Got to meet him personally. Exchanged only a few words with him, but he was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He was actually in the same conference that Jim Marrs was at.
Oh, wow.
Jim Marrs. Yeah, no, it was an excellent conference. So Duncan Rhodes, thank you very much for hosting that one. That was some years ago, I believe, in Sydney. There was one of the few that was held in Sydney. Now, okay, so Michael Ruppert, right? So Ruppert first came to prominence several years before those attacks for his work documenting the CIA involvement in drug trafficking. Okay, he was actually an LA cop. That's how he started. He was an LA cop, and he was very, very much aware of what went on. In late 2001, he published a report on the stock trades involving the exercise of put options on American airliners and United Airlines stock, activity Ruppert linked to the CIA. Okay, so we spoke about the short selling of stock, right? Remember, guys? On those islands that actually then were part of the attack. And now Ruppert's website, which is from the wilderness, it's still up and running, by the way. I'm going to post it in the chat for you guys. And if you haven't been there, please go there. He's no longer with us, but his legacy lives on. So it's in the chat there. it features articles by analysts such as Dale Allen Pfeiffer showing that oil production in several countries has already peaked and predicting that production in the remaining countries will soon peak. Now that was in 2001. But for all intents and purposes, if it is real, peak oil might have already been reached, meaning we will now produce less oil than we need and less oil than we have before. Okay? Peak oil.
Mekhi, I've got a great graphic for that. So
beautiful.
Just hang 5 and it'll be up there.
Fantastic. Now, finally, though, one has to wonder not only about the motives of this supposed oil coup, but one needs also to speculate on whether the perpetrators fully understand the implications of energy depletion. So if you don't have any oil, what will happen? You know, and what would they do if they were losing control? If they were losing control in the face of no longer having any, fossil fuels or any other energy sources at their disposal, what would happen? What would happen? And I think we are seeing the preparations for that.
Yes.
Imagine a world without oil or gas. Okay, we have screwed around a long time. We haven't really put much research into alternative energy sources. We've really wasted our time, I think, there. And we had a little bit of grace, and I think that's gone. So a world without oil and gas, will pretty much collapse in on itself. And especially the United States, which is addicted to oil. In fact, our entire civilization is built around the car. I will repeat this, our entire civilization is built around the car. I'm talking about the West here. Mm-hmm. Look at any Western country. The predominant features in the Western country are roads,
yes,
parking facilities, and petrol stations.
Mm-hmm.
That's what defines our cities, right? You go to some other poorer countries, sure there are roads, but they're for walking. Those roads are for walking. And parking is not really an issue because nobody has the money to buy a car.
That's right.
And petrol is not really that common either. I mean, remember back in the olden days, some 150 years ago, did you know where you used to buy petrol? At the chemist, at the apothecary, right? That's who would sell you your petrol.
Wow,
right? These days,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's true. In fact, you could at the same time that you could buy your benzene, it was actually called then, which is the actual fuel. You could also buy your cocaine and heroin without a subscription over the counter. No, I'm having a headache. Yeah, yes, I'm cocaine. Thank you very much.
Do you know in Bali, they've got like ice cream vendors on the side of the road selling petrol in milk bottles.
Right.
That's the slow conversion across to a non-industrialized city has gone to that point.
Yep.
It's almost ideal. They could delete that from the landscape and we'd be back to normal again. But Mekhi, the graphic that I put up does show that the peak has been and gone, and we're on the downslide.
Right. Okay, look, that's the unless we're finding some massive other resources elsewhere, we start mining on other planets or or whatever. Maybe with this dimensional gateway into another Earth, we are really going to be in a lot of in a world of pain here, guys. And that's on top of our growing population and the mismanagement.
Exactly. I have to say that the source of this was the Cambridge Energy Research Associates.
Right.
So it's not just I didn't put it together. Okay.
Wow. Now this is so. Look, guys, we try to bring you the research that is being done all around the world from different sources, things that you might have forgotten, things that you might never come across, because we're interested in it. We hope you're interested in it. The next one that Dave is going to share with you here is fascinating, and there's a massive amount of sources here. I know we're going to make a lot of enemies with this particular piece of information, but
thanks for pushing me forward.
I'm happy to take it, but I believe that. Oh, look, we can take it in turn as well if that eases your mind.
Let's do that.
Okay, so essentially this one is around Israeli investors making huge profits from this event. So Dave, take it away, sir.
Okay, so August 8th to 23rd of that's. Hang on, so it's August 23rd, 2001. 2 high-ranking Israeli Mossad agents come to Washington to warn the FBI and CIA that up to 200 terrorists have slipped into the U.S. and are planning an imminent major assault in the U.S. Indications point to a highly visible target.
What are the sources there, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. The source. We'll read the source as well. That's the Telegraph, Los Angeles Times, and Fox News.
Right. Now, The next piece in the puzzle here is the Mossad gives the CIA a list of terrorists. A major Israeli spy ring was hot on the heels of at least 4 members of the 9/11 hijackers, including lead hijacker Mohammed Atta. Now, that's the official story, and the source here is the BBC.
Yes, indeed. And August 24th, 2001, the head of the Israeli Mossad reported the imminence of an Arab attack against American agents, and similar report was made by the same agency on September 7th, 2001. September 6th, 4,744 put options, a speculation that the stock will go down, are purchased on United Airlines stock as opposed to only 396 call options, speculations that the stock will go up. So it looks like it was heavily weighted towards it going down. This is dramatic and abnormal increase in sales of put options. Many of the UAL puts are purchased through Deutsche Bank, AB Brown, a firm managed until 1998 by the current executive director of the CIA, AB Buzzy Krongard.
Now, this was back in 2003, though,
and
guys,
that's
obviously.
the source of the Wall Street Journal.
Correct. Now, think about this, that just before we go on, just very quickly. The government, agencies, and corporations now have revolving door policies. And this Buzzy Krongard here is just another one. He manages a massive bank. Massive! Right? Deutsche Bank is one of the biggest banks in the world. And then he becomes the executive director of the CIA. Yeah, that happens. That makes sense.
How does that transfer from one to the other? Does it sound like the same job?
It's nuts, mate. It's nuts. Now, September 10, 2001, 4,516 put options are purchased on American Airlines, which is the other airline that was involved, as compared to 748 call options. And the source here is the New York Times as well as the Wall Street Journal.
When was that? That was September blah, blah, blah.
September 10th, sir, yep.
Oh, the day before, Mecky.
The day before.
I've got a slide for the day before, so that's where we're at right now.
Beautiful.
September 11. No other airlines show any similar trading patterns to those experienced by United Airlines and American. The put option purchases on both airlines was 600% above normal. This at a time when Reuters, September 10th, issues a business report stating airline stocks may be poised to take off. I like that pun.
Yeah.
September 10th, highly abnormal levels of put options are purchased in Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, AXA, that's an insurance company, which own 25% of American Airlines, and Munich Re. All of these companies are directly impacted by the September 11 attacks.
Boom.
Yep. It has been documented that CIA, the Israel Mossad, and many other intelligence agencies monitor stock trading in real time using highly advanced programs reported to be descended from Promise software. Yeah,
the Promise software is actually, I guess, a stock trading monitoring system, right? If you research the history of it, it's fascinating stuff, and this is years ago. So Promise was, whatever it was then, is much more advanced now. In fact, by the time the attacks happened, it was much more advanced than what Promise had been before that.
Of course, I know that it monitors it in milliseconds, and any trade, and it can put it. You can be ahead of the trend. Depending on the options that you've put into it. So this is the software is to alert the national intelligence services of just such kind of attacks. Promise was reported as recently as June 2001 to be in Osama bin Laden's possession. So he'd be visible. He'd be able to see all these trends. And as a result of recent stories by Fox and both the FBI and the Justice Department have confirmed its use for U.S. intelligence gathering through at least this summer. Whatever the date was, we'll get to that in a minute. This would confirm that the CIA had additional advance warning of imminent attacks. And that came from the Washington Times 2001.
Yes,
and Fox
sir.
News, October 16th.
Yep. Now there was an SEC secret probe of stock dealings before 9/11. Okay, this is the result here. Between August 26 and September 11, 2001, a group of speculators identified by the American Securities and Exchange Commission as Israeli citizens sold short a list of 38 stocks that could reasonably be expected to fall in value as a result of the pending attacks. These speculators operated out of the Toronto, Canada, and Frankfurt, Germany stock exchanges, and their profits were specifically stated to be in the millions of dollars. It was reported by the Interdisciplinary Center, a counter-terrorism think tank involving former Israeli intelligence officers, that insiders made nearly $16 million in profit by short-selling shares in American and United Airlines, the two airlines that suffered hijacking, and the investment firm of Morgan Stanley, which occupied 22 floors of the WTC. 22 floors, Morgan Stanley. Most of these transactions were handled primarily by Deutsche Bank AB Brown, a firm which, as we mentioned before, until 1998 was chaired by A.B. Buzzy Krongard, who later, as we just mentioned as well, became executive director of the CIA. You know what, Dave?
Yep.
Yeah, it was 19 guys with box cutters. That's what happened.
The Saudis.
That's what happened.
The Saudis
Yeah.
with box cutters. That's right.
Sure, that's what happened.
That's what it was. Rand Paul says Dick Cheney pushed for the Iraq War so Halliburton would profit. Now, there's no surprise in that, that Halliburton would profit, but Dick Cheney pushed for it.
Yeah.
As the ex-VP blast Paul for being an isolationist, old video shows the Kentucky senator charging that Cheney used 9/11 as an excuse to invade Iraq and benefit his former company. That's just extraordinary. I've actually got a picture of, right now of Donald Rumsfeld during his speech to the talking about the trillions of dollars lost. That's the image on the 10th. So it's while we're still on 10th. It's pretty funny. The quote from Monday, April 7th, 2014. It is, last week continuing the sometimes catty intra-party feud between Republican hawks and GOPers. Skeptical of foreign intervention, former Vice President Dick Cheney took a shot at Senator Rand Paul. But Paul is not likely to be fazed by criticism from Cheney. For several years ago, the Kentucky senator was pushing the conspiratorial notion that the former VP exploited the horrific 9/11 attacks to lead the nation into war in Iraq in order to benefit Halliburton, the enormous military contractor where Cheney had once been CEO. I think we'll leave it at that. Wow.
Yes. Now, this is the thing. When the Iraq War started, right? Halliburton got $1 billion no-bid contract. We mentioned this before, guys.
That's right.
Right. Some of the stuff had been so shoddy and so sloppy that the American soldiers are they're dying in the shower from electrocution. Right. So we're talking about really basic workmanship, like really faulty workmanship. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be sloppy work. It shouldn't be bad procurement process. But in fact, there isn't even a procurement process because the contracts were just awarded without any bids. Okay, that's how it was, guys. I do want to share quickly something with you.
Go through it.
And this is something that is a quote. So I will share the quote with you in full. And I need to put it at this point because it's very, very important. In fact, there are two quotes. I'll give you the first one. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance and our neglect. We still have a choice today. Non-violent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. Now, who said this? Dr. Martin Luther King in 1967.
Huh.
Okay, it was his address to clergy and laity concerned at the Riverside Church in New York on April 4th, 1967. There's a second quote here. This conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. January 17th, 1961. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, in his farewell address to the nation. Right?
He warned everybody.
Yeah.
He warned us all.
60 years ago. Almost 60 years ago, guys.
See, that's the tragic. The tragedy is that no one listened.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna chance and put my video on, Dave, and the reason I'm doing it is because I want the guys to see the book I'm holding in my hand. So if you lose me, I'll try to dial back in.
All right.
But this is essentially the book. All right, guys.
Can you see it? 3, 2, 1. There we go. I'll put you on Skype video only. There you go.
Beautiful. So this. How much money are you making on the War Daddy? It's an excellent book by William Hartung. How much are you making on the War Daddy? So it is a very succinct rundown on the profiteering and peoples and groups that made money on this particular event. It is in the it's ensuing Iraq War. It's an excellent piece of writing, and I think it was written in 2003 or 4. And I do recommend it. How much are you making on the War Daddy by William Hartung? So please read it, guys. And while you're at it, I would suggest you read another book by Brzezinski, and that book is called The Grand Chessboard. The Grand Chessboard. Awesome. Here we go. And he's one of the neocons. Read it and weep. I say. People always complain. It's called The Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski. Okay, American Primacy and its geostrategic imperatives. He's one of the guys that advised the Bush administration. Okay, so we have the material, the information is out there. Nobody can say, "Oh, I didn't know." Really, I just saw the smoke coming out of the chimneys. I didn't know what that meant. Guys, this is our time to actually stand up and do something here, right? There is no other time. It's now, and I'm not talking about physical violence. Absolutely not. But choose to live differently, choose to buy differently, choose to consume differently, choose to help someone. Maybe, I don't know, but live your life differently. Don't just be a total consumer. That's no good. It doesn't help anyone. And this is exactly what they want us to do. Consume, consume, consume. Sit in your chair, in your easy chair, the Lazy Susan or whatever it's called. It's called Lazy Susan. What is it called? That easy chair, whatever.
An easy chair.
Easy chair, there you go. Lazy Susan is the thing you have in the yum chow places. Now, so yeah, but okay. So this is just a caution here. This is not the final bit here. But Dave, we have an update on Mr. Silverstein, right? On page 16. I thought it was hilarious. It was hilarious, and it was disgusting at the same time.
Yeah, so it says World Trade Center owner Larry Silverstein sues airlines for billions over the date that we can't mention after $5 billion insurance payout. This is authored on July 17th, 2013. It says he's already notorious. The notorious owner, they're not my words, of the World Trade Center, Larry Pullet Silverstein, doesn't think that his $5 billion in insurance payments are enough to reimburse his losses during that date. Despite admitting to pull World Trade Center 7, despite moderate fires, only moderate, Silverstein is now suing the airlines whose planes flew into the towers for extra billions. Instead of donating even a penny to the first responders who were told they would be fine while inhaling toxic substances, only to be denied health care for their chronic conditions. Silverstein says that he simply hasn't been relieved of his economic loss that he suffered after 9/11.
Shocking. Bullshit, too. Sorry, pardon my French.
It's crazy. I've got a slide up at the moment, which is basically his discussion about that, which was demolished. He's talking about pulling it. It's, do you know what? I don't think people. I think there should be a moral obligation for anyone who has any money that employs anybody. And that moral obligation is to keep those people gainfully employed and healthy.
Yeah.
That's the moral obligation. Okay. And when companies become large enough that they're their own city, or even greater than that, a country.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a good piece to this, Dave. Isn't there?
Please push us the good piece, Mackie.
Okay, so denied. That's just my headline here. Denied. The judge, the U.S. District Court judge that presided over this particular case, ruled that Mr. Larry Silverstein cannot sue the airlines over 9/11 damages.
Yay!
Okay, now he sued them. He sued them in 2004 for $8 billion. All right, didn't win there either. And the journal, the magazine, the journal, called the ruling a significant setback in Silverstein's nearly decade-long fight for more money to rebuild the World Trade Center. Silverstein probably plans Silverstein plans to appeal the decision in an email. A spokesperson told the journal, "We will not rest until we have exhausted every option to ensure that the aviation industry's insurers pay their fair share toward the complete rebuilding of the World Trade Center." Really? 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 So these are the figures, guys. Okay, so the potential 8.5 billion that he wants, he actually received 5 billion. Make no mistake, he's already got 5 billion. He got that. Okay, he got that done. I got $5 billion. Thank you very much. $8.5 billion would be if he got his, or the $4 billion he would get if he had gotten it from the American Airlines, United Airlines. That would have put the total to roughly $8.5–9 billion. Okay, that is 2.5 times the value, the fair market value of the fallen buildings. 2.5 times. So 5 billion is already more than the fair value. 5 billion already is more than it is, right? Probably 1.5 times the value of the buildings.
Wow.
Billions of dollars, okay?
Just think
Make no mistake.
Think about half the volunteers that helped the cleanup.
Oh, forget the volunteers.
It wasn't even a demolishment, that we had to pay people to come and move it away. And what about all the stuff? It was demolished and destroyed quicker than you could blink.
Yeah,
Can't
absolutely.
prove anything.
No. But you know what really shocked me, though, Dave? And I'll be honest with you, I found this shocking. And this is something I didn't know before I read this article. None of these guys who had these huge payouts, and Silverstein is only one of them that made big profits here. I mean, Halliburton and those guys made massive profits from other stuff, right? Northrop Grumman and so forth. Not a single one of those contributed anything to the health funds of the people that actually responded on the day.
Wow.
The people that were breathing in the asbestos fumes, fumes, I should say. The people that are now dying of lung cancer and whatnot.
That's right.
So so these guys actually have no health care, as far as I know.
Yeah, well, what makes it worse is that the actual materials that were airborne during the collapse and that filled most of New York included barium, radium, and from the smoke detectors, mercury from each one of the fluorescent lights. Each fluorescent globe has a single drop of mercury, without which the fluorescent does not work, which is why the red mercury that we have spoke about in the past just seems so plausible that if a fluorescent doesn't have a single drop of mercury in it through which high voltage is exposed to it, that it doesn't come to life. Yeah. So I don't know how many. I can't even estimate how many globes there would have been, and how many. You'd be able to fill at least a bucket or 2 buckets with mercury, just pure mercury, as a result, just to the lighting. But Mecca, you and I know that each computer has heavy metals in it.
Oh yeah,
it has heavy metals,
Absolutely.
dangerous metals. And so all of this, and there's a syndrome. And some people's apartments had more than a foot of debris come through the window. They weren't at home; they were out. They left the windows open.
Yes.
And they came home and they were completely shrouded in it. And it didn't stop there, because as people emptied more of this and tossed it into the street or whatever, it perpetually filled up the air. And you only have to have one asbestos fibre breathed into your lungs for a growth to occur, asbestosis, let alone all of the other hideousness that these poor people have had to endure. And, you know, it's one of those things that I've always looked at. I looked up, you know, with wide eyes, looking at New York, going, wow, what a populous, amazing place, so many people living there. Well, we're going to get to the point where we're going, how that's so unfortunate that so many people have died there because of this.
Yes, yes. Now, again, in the scheme of things, though, and I know this is going to sound callous, those 3,500 deaths mean absolutely nothing.
Yep.
To the guys that are reaping billions, do you think Larry Silverstein would even light a candle for one of the guys that died? Nah, he made $5 billion. He was paid and now he wants more. He wants more. This level of greed cannot easily be comprehended. It's very hard for the average person to comprehend that kind of greed, that kind of necessity to have more. You know, like it's that game, you know, whoever has the most when they die wins. Really? It is actually amazing that this is not criminal. I mean, this level of sheer profiteering, okay, this is all I can call it here, it leaves me speechless. It leaves me speechless. And then I just posted into the chat the story about the first responders who can't afford or can't get health care. Mm-hmm. And they're all dying now. They're dying of various cancers, you know, because of the exposures they suffered. Is that the music already?
It is the music already, and guess what? That is the end of show number 132.
132.
230 and 100, as Meki would say.
230 and 100, that's right.
What we'll do, we're going to see all of you next week. Stay tuned. There's another, I think it's an open roundtable after us, and then it's on to the next day's programming. We'll catch you next week for another Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Meki.
No worries, guys. See you later.